Hello everyone! A few things before we start this video. A, I'm so pumped because I found my old camera and it's like flashing me back to freshman year of high school when I used to like do close-up shots of my eyeballs and like put makeup on them. Second of all, yes, I am wearing this shirt again. This is like one of those new like soft and sexy shirts from American Eagle, and they're literally the softest shirts I've ever worn. And they're like not super expensive, and I have like about like 700 of them. So it like looks like I'm wearing the same shirt a lot, but it's really just because I have like 5,000 of the same shirt. So, alright, but I'm really excited because today I am doing my first installment of my Rush series, and I have my little notebook here where I've written everything, and I've decided it's going to be like a 3-part, almost kind of I guess 6-part series where I do 5 expectations, so 5 things you should expect going to Rush, 5 like tips to rush well, like to do well as a PNM, which is a potential new member, and 5 things to include in your survival kit. So I figured I'd do one video on each of those, but then also, as I was talking to one of my friends about this, my best friend Marcy, you guys have seen her before, she goes to school up north, like she goes to school in Washington DC, and she's in a sorority up there, but they're very different than where I go to school because I go to school in the South, and Greek life is just really different. So I was thinking that I might do, for everyone that I do, every video of like the 5 expectations, tips, and like rush kit, Marcy is gonna do an equivalent with me for urban northern style rush, because like for example where I live there's houses, and where she lives there's no sorority houses because it's such an urban environment. So I thought that would be a really cool comparison. But enough rambling, let's just get into it because this is gonna be like a 5-minute intro at this point. And let's get started with my 5 expectations that I think you should know about going into Rush. Alright, so my first tip is that at most schools in the South, or really just honestly most schools in general, there's going to be a lot of sororities. And the way that Rush works is the first round, and at every place there's Rush, you're gonna have to go to every single house. And if you have a lot of sororities at your school, like mine, there's 16 sororities. With that being said, with 16 sororities, that's 16 different sororities that you have to see in that first round. So my first expectation is to expect long days, for the beginning rounds at least. Because usually it starts with really short rounds, time-wise, so like on the first day you're gonna have to go to every single house, but you may only go for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something like that. So they're really, really quick because there's so many of them. There's so many, in fact, at my school that we do 2 days of round 1 and 2 days of round 2 because it's so hard to get all of them done in one day. It's like they used to have to start at 7 a.m. and they finish at like midnight, and that was just crazy. So they switched it to 2 7. But long story short, you should expect long days in the beginning because you're gonna have to go to every sorority. Sorry guys, my battery died. / I moved back a little farther so you can see my hand movements because I'm a very like hand talky type of person. Anyway, my second tip is that go into it knowing that it's going to seem repetitive. Because, especially in the beginning, going to every single house and you haven't met these girls before, it's your very first time, you're probably going to be a little bit nervous. The girls on the other side are of course like trained, have things to talk about with you, but it's going to sound repetitive. It's going to be, you know, like what year are you? What's your major? Where are you from? Etc, etc. And you're going to start to feel like, you know, after the 3rd, 4th, 5th hour of the day that you're in Rush, that you're not having genuine conversations because you're having the same, you're speaking about the same things over and over again. But to the person in the sorority, you're a completely new person than the last person she talked to, so that's really your time to, you know, shine. Make something not repetitive, but go in knowing that it's probably going to feel repetitive to you, but it's not going to be to them. So don't let it get you down if you start to feel like, oh, no one actually cares about me because they're asking me like the same questions the last 5 girls asked me. No, that's just like the first round, that's how it is, and sometimes it can be repetitive. My third thing that you should know going into Rush is that the emotions are real, friend. The emotions are real, friend. The emotions are real. And you will start to feel all these emotions that you didn't think you could have, like you didn't think you cared about before, and all of a sudden like you care a lot. And that can be, you know, those can be positive feelings, like you maybe didn't know if a sorority liked you or not, so you kept them on your preference list, and then the next day they call you back, and all of a sudden you get like a little happy feeling. But at the same time, you know, if say one of your top sororities doesn't call you back for the next round, it can be really emotional. And sometimes it's really hard because everyone has their schedules for the day, and maybe your friends get their schedules and they're texting you saying, oh, did you get your top 1, blah, 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 and you don't want to have to text back and say, you know, no, like Alpha dropped me and I was really excited about them. And sometimes you realize throughout the process of rush that you care a lot more about a certain sorority than you thought you did to begin with. And I think that can be really hard, so I think it helps a lot knowing ahead of time that there will be tons, like you'll go on an emotional roller coaster, I promise you, I swear to you that. If anything, if I can guarantee anything about sorority rush, it's that you will go on an emotional roller coaster of happy and sad, and it will be all over the place. It's a great experience, it's not a bad experience, I love it, I love my sorority, I'm happy I went Greek, but just know that it can get really emotional at times. My fourth thing that I think that you should know ahead of time rush is that the whole glamorization of that you'll just know, you'll just feel it, isn't always true. And that's not to say that it isn't. Sometimes it is like that. Sometimes you walk into a house and it'll just hit you. You don't know what it is. You'll feel it inside of your heart and you'll say,
oh, these girls, like, they could be my sisters for the rest of my life.
But what's actually more likely will happen is that it won't. So don't think that you need to pick a sorority based on having that feeling or just knowing, because a lot of the times it doesn't happen for people. I guess in summation, the whole I just knew it feeling, it can happen, it can't happen, it could happen early, it could happen later. And I'm not saying it's not true, I'm just saying don't base your entire decision off of whether or not that feeling happened, because sometimes you end up in places that you didn't even think you'd belong, and you can only see it in hindsight that this is where I belong, I'm so happy I'm here, and that's kind of how I feel with my sorority. Okay, so my last and final thing that you should know, expectation, going to rush. I think I saved this one for last. I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but I saved it for last because I think it's the most important one, and it's that these girls that are rushing you may seem robotic. For example, as I said, I go to school in the South, and most of the times schools in the South have sorority houses. And I'm actually learning this year as being on my first year on the other side of rush, like rushing new PNMs. We have these things called walkouts. There's specific ways that all the sorority girls have to walk out to come get the girl that they're rushing to pick up a PNM. It's so far to the fact that like our steps have to be in sync, and there's like certain spots we have to stand and we have to like move like robots. And a lot of the times the girls will, you know, they'll have spray tans, their hair will be done, their makeup will be perfect, they'll be like 8 feet tall because they're in wedges, and they'll seem like Barbie robots. But what I want to tell you is that they're not like that. They won't be like that. If that's something that scares you and you go through rush and maybe the first sorority you think that and you're like, oh, maybe they'll be normal at the next one, but then at the end of the day you're kind of disheartened because you think all of them are like robotic Barbies. They're not like that. That's just how we have to be for rush. We have to put our best foot forward. What a sorority is really like is by actually talking to the girl and having real conversations, getting past that surface level, oh, I'm an engineering major, I'm going to be a sophomore, I'm blah 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 blah. Getting past all of that is how you're going to see the sorority. I remember my first day of rush, I was like, these girls are not gonna like me. I'm 5'1", and all of them are like 6 feet tall and tan and blonde, and like I'm Asian. I just thought like, oh my god. And it was really overwhelming, but then now, a year later, I'm looking back on it and I'm like, how could I have ever thought that, knowing these girls now? Each sorority is individual, and even within each sorority, each girl is individual. And so sometimes rush can kind of like glaze over the individuality of each girl. So just know that if they seem like robots, they might not actually be robots. So you shouldn't worry about that. Alright, well that is all for my first video in my rush series. That was so lame. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm excited, and keep a lookout for my next one, and I think I'm gonna try to film Marcy's version of this tomorrow, so her 5 expectations for northern / more urban schools rush. And thanks for watching, you guys. I'm so excited to finally have this camera so I can do these type of sit down videos again. Alright, but until next time, bye y'all.